Hi Geometry, this is our Unit 4 packet, page 1, and we're going to talk about Unit 4, Lesson 5, Intro to Trigonometry. When working with angles, we tend to use theta. It's a Greek symbol that looks like a circle with a line through the middle. We use other variables and other symbols, but we tend to use theta. And we have an acronym to help us remember our trig functions. It's SO, CA, TOA. And the SOH helps me remember that sine of theta is equal to the opposite side over the hypotenuse. That's my SO and H. The CA helps me remember that cosine theta is adjacent over hypotenuse. And the TOA helps me remember that tangent theta equals opposite over adjacent. This is the first three letters in my formula: T for tangent, O for opposite, A for adjacent. So this box has the same three equations I just wrote, and the words for SOHCAHTOA are identified right here to the side. So let's take a look at what it means to be opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. So let's take a look at this triangle mid-page. It would like us to find sine of A, cosine of A, and tangent of A, and express each as a ratio, a fraction, and then also as a decimal. So notice the top three all have an A in place of theta, and notice the bottom three all have a B. This is telling me which angle to look at. So for the first three, angle A is going to be the angle I'm focused on. So I'm going to label my triangle with my three sides based on A. Well, the opposite side is always opposite of A. It doesn't touch A. And then the adjacent side does touch A. And the way you can tell which side is the adjacent is go ahead and write down your hypotenuse. That'll be the one across from your right angle. The other side is your adjacent side. To be adjacent means to touch. Those are the three sides of my triangle, and those are the three sides used in my trig functions. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So let's go find my opposite side of A. That's the 5. I'm going to write the 5. And my hypotenuse is the 13. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse, or in this case, 5 over 13. On your calculator, divide 5 by 13, and you'll find that's equal to 0.385. Let's do cosine of A next. So cosine, look up above, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So I'm going to enter my adjacent leg, which is 12, and my hypotenuse is 13. So cosine of A is the ratio 12 over 13, and it's a decimal. That's approximately 0.923. So finally, tangent of A. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So let's go find our opposite. That was side 5, and our adjacent is the 12. And when I divide that, I get 0.417. So now to do the next three, you need to focus on angle B instead of A. Let's redraw the exact same triangle you see above. This is my A, this is B, this is C, this is the 5, this side's 13, and this side's 12. This time, I want B to be the angle I'm focused on. So I'm going to label my triangle based on B. So my 12 is now opposite. It's on the other side of my triangle from B and does not touch B. The 5 and 13 touch B, and I know the 13 is my hypotenuse. So that means the 5 then is my adjacent side. The adjacent side touches my angle. So pause this video for a moment and write your fraction ratios for sine B, cosine B, and tangent B. Use your calculator to get the decimal, and then come back to check your answer. Welcome back, Geometry. I hope you got the correct fractions and the correct decimals for our angle B. So I want to point out, I hope you noticed that the sine of B and the cosine of A is the same value, and the sine of A and the cosine of B are also the same value. There's also a relationship between my tangent. The tangent of A is really the reciprocal of tangent of B. So if you would do 1 divided by 4.17, you would get 2.14. If you would do the reciprocal of 2.14, 1 divided by 2.14, you would get 0.417. We'll be studying these relationships between the angles in a right triangle. A and B, angle A and angle B, are called the acute angles, and angle C is the right angle of our triangle. Angles A and B are also complementary. Angle A and angle B are complementary angles. That means that they add up to 90 degrees. Let's take a look at how to use sine and cosine and tangent to find values in my triangle. So let's take a look at our steps for using sine, cosine, and tangent. Step 1, always locate the angle that you're using. This is when in the last example we were either using A or we were using angle B. Label your sides opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse based on your angle. And then determine whether you have sine, cosine, or tangent based on your labeled sides. Lastly, we're going to solve the equation for our unknown. So let's take a look at those 4 steps with example 1. In this problem, it says to find x. So first, locate your known angle. I know the 21-degree angle. So I'm going to mark my blue arc mark there, and I'm going to use that angle to do step 2. Let's label the sides. My side labeled x is opposite of the 21 degrees. My 12 is the hypotenuse. That makes my blank side my adjacent side. So now on step 3, you look at your triangle and you see what you're given. Well, I'm trying to find the opposite side and I'm given the hypotenuse. So now I think of my SOHCAHTOA and I'm trying to find something that uses opposite and hypotenuse. Opposite and hypotenuse look like it's sine. So it looks like I'm going to be using sine equation here. So let's write sine of 21 degrees, that's my angle, is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. Well, the opposite side is x, and my hypotenuse is 12. This is an equation. I'm now going to solve this equation for x. I'm going to multiply by 12 to get the 12s to cancel. I'm going to multiply by 12, and I find that 12 times the sine of 21 degrees is equal to x. So on our calculators, we'll find the sine of 21 degrees, we'll multiply by 12 and get x equals 4.3. Let's continue with this triangle. So step 1 is to identify your angle. So I'm going to identify my 42-degree angle as the angle I'm working with. So step 2, I'm going to label all my sides. Well, this would be the side opposite. The side labeled x is my hypotenuse, and the side that's 20 is my adjacent. So now I look at my sides for step 3, and I notice I'm trying to find the hypotenuse, and I'm told the adjacent. So I go back to my SOHCAHTOA, and I'm looking for something that has adjacent and hypotenuse. So I notice that cosine is A and H. Cosine is adjacent and hypotenuse. So I'm going to write a cosine equation. Cosine of 42 degrees equals my adjacent 20 over my x. So this problem, students can make mistakes on. Be careful. Your variable is in the denominator. This is all kinds of bad. You do not want your variable in the denominator. You need to get your variable out of the denominator. I'm going to multiply both sides by x. What about divide by 20? No, don't do it. You need to multiply both sides by x. This x is really over 1. My x's just canceled, and I have x times cosine of 42 degrees equals 20. I did that because now my x is in my numerator. My x is up and out of the denominator. However, I want to get it by itself. Let's divide the cosine 42 degrees to move it to the other side. The cosine cancels, and I get x equals 20 divided by the cosine of 42 degrees. I grab my calculator, I do 20 divided by cosine 42, and I find once I press equals, I get 26.91 for my side length. So let's take a look at the 3 problems on the back side. Take a moment and go through each problem. Find your angle, step 1. Label your sides, opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse, step 2. Pick the trig function. You're going to use sine, cosine, or tangent, and find the missing side. Then come back and see if you got the correct answers. Welcome back, geometry. I hope you got these 3 correct. I want to remind you of the steps that you do. Step 1 is you identify your angle. Here's my angle, 41 degrees for number 3. You then, step 2, label your sides, adjacent, and my hypotenuse and my opposite sides. Then I look at them and I see what I have to use. In this case, I have an adjacent side and a hypotenuse to use. I use my SOHCAHTOA. To see that adjacent and hypotenuse is cosine. So I write my cosine equation and I put in my my adjacent and my hypotenuse. And I need to multiply both sides by 32 to get the x by itself. And then on my calculator, I finish my problem by multiplying 32 times the cosine of 41 to get 24.15. Please bring any questions you have from this to our office hours. Thank you.